During the 2012 Corporate Club Series at Lander Haven, we asked important questions to those professionals who knew the answers. Why should people in the suburbs care about Cleveland schools? What is the process by which musicians are chosen to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? How Cuyahoga County is positioned for economic recovery? Why a championship sports team means so much to Clevelanders? Can the Democrats and Republicans ever work together? Well, answers to these and more will be given during this hour. Bill Martin, Andy Baskin, and I, Stefani Schaefer, will be your guides through the highlights of this year's Corporate Club Series at Lander Haven.
From the Grand Ballroom at Executive Caterers at Lander Haven, thank you for joining us as we celebrate more than 20 years of presenting important and timely discussions. Corporate Club is the direct link for community leaders to connect with regional businesses, government, and nonprofit organizations. This series of programs deals with those issues and persons that impact on the lives of those who live in Northeastern Ohio. Corporate Club at Lander Haven begins right now.
2012 was an important political year, and Ohio was a key battleground state in the national elections. Now, I had the opportunity to lead a discussion with the regional and state representatives of the Republican and Democratic parties. They discussed the election and gave their opinions on the opposing political party.
Under Governor Kasich, under his direct leadership, not sole credit, this governor being able to work with others. You don't want someone who's trying to take sole credit. You want someone, and I know we're going to get to education, who, like Republican Governor Kasich, with Democrat Mayor in Cleveland, Frank Jackson, leaders, Democrat and Republican alike in the state legislature, reformed Cleveland public schools and how they're going to work very dynamically going forward. That's what this governor is doing.
All right, let's talk a little education here. The biggest news item in education right now is a pretty good strike going on in Chicago right now, where the teachers union right now is pretty angry with this current president, Rahm Emanuel, who was his chief of staff. So how do you see education playing out, Stuart, not only in this area, if you want to talk money as well, but nationally?
Education, at the end of the day, it's about how we choose. And I'm not an expert on what's going on in Chicago, so I don't want to try to extrapolate from Chicago.
There is a fight, though, with money. There's no money left. The country is broke, and so are the local governments.
Right. So the issue is funding for public education. And how do we choose to fund public education? We can talk all we want, but you're not, simply balancing education on the backs of one group, school teachers, is not going to do it. This is a global responsibility of everybody that has a stake in public education, and everyone's going to have to participate in that solution. And until we get our heads around the issue, which is the funding of our public schools, and then we can talk about consolidation of services and everything else, but don't tell me that school teacher salaries, that public unions are the problem.
Bob, we got about 2 minutes here.
Yeah, real quickly, is I think that you look at what Frank Jackson proposed for the Cleveland school system. I'm a resident of the city of Cleveland. I fully support what the mayor is trying to do, working it out with the governor. Again, I think you have to take a new look at how you're delivering the basic product of education. And it's different in the urban areas than it is in the rural areas. I can take you to great public school systems throughout the state, and they're west, most of them are west of Interstate 75, and they have great teachers, and they're getting a great education there. But I think that when we lump everything together and say that we're going to produce education in the same way, in the same manner as we've done in the past with the teachers unions, I think that it's just the wrong approach. And as far as Chicago, let me comment on two things. California passed a budget that is subject to a tax increase on the ballot in November. Chicago is broke. There is no more money. It's one of the highest tax states in the union. Both run by Democrat governors, both on the verge of bankruptcy. And I just think that we have to take new approaches to the delivery of governmental services, and that includes education.
You guys,
and I think Frank Jackson's on the right.
30 seconds.
You realize the budget in Ohio is greater today than the day Ted Strickland left office, right? We're under this false illusion that somehow John Kasich came in and cut the budget. It's factually incorrect. To my friend Bill, state government or local governments are broke because the local government fund here in Ohio over the course of the last 75 years has been stripped away by this governor. Not because of lack of resources, because the budget's higher today than it was 1 year ago. So the resources are there, the commitment isn't. and trying to create boogeymen, trying to place blame on one section or the other, government, teachers. What next? They're going to strip away collective bargaining rights for police and firefighters?
Well, I'll tell
They
you,
tried to do that, didn't they? I like how they continue to praise Democratic leaders like Frank Jackson, the mayor of Cleveland, and perhaps the next governor of the state of Ohio, Ed Fitzgerald. Keep praising those Democrats. I appreciate it, guys.
The Corporate Club continues to recognize influential women in Northeast Ohio. And this year, our guests were Lieutenant Governor of Ohio, Mary Taylor, and Tammy Longaberger, CEO of Longaberger Company. I interviewed them both about what it takes to be a successful leader today in politics and in business.
We have a lot of college students in the audience. What's your advice to them? Mary, we'll start with you about when you're young, because we started there a few moments ago when you guys are young, that turning point in your life. We've got a lot of young people out here today who are in that don't know what to decide, don't know what to do, not really sure how do they follow what they want to do, their dreams, their goals. How do you sort through all of that? What's your advice to them?
I guess the biggest piece of advice that I would have, I think I took it myself, which was you may not know what you want to be or what you want to do today, and you may be 18, you may be 20, you may be 25 or 30, but be willing to take advantage of any opportunity that presents itself to you, because like I said, I didn't start off being involved in politics as an elected official, but decided in my 30s that's what I wanted to do. I was willing to take advantage of an opportunity that came up unexpectedly. And so from my perspective, I know it's really hard today for teenagers or young folks to say, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm 20 years old and I know that I want to do this for the rest of my life. My advice is that you may not know, and that's okay, but just be willing to work hard and take advantage of those opportunities.
Tammy, I know you see that because you travel globally and you were just even out of the country 2 weeks ago. So you see so much that the opportunities that we do have here. Will you speak on that and address that?
Sure, there's no doubt. What Stephanie's referencing is I do a lot of volunteer work in the Middle East with Arab women who want to have the opportunity to develop leadership skills. Some perhaps eventually will run for office as those democracies emerge, but also if they just want to get more involved in their community, serve in a leadership position at the equivalent of a parent-teacher organization. Leadership skills, social skills, media skills are what we do with our time when we're over in the Middle East. But I've been over there like 7 or 8 times in the last 3 years now. And on the last trip back, one of the things that struck me was what was the difference that I saw with my own eyes between America and what the women that I see and work with in the Middle East. And it's really a core competency that we have in America here that sometimes I think we overlook or take for granted. And that is that belief that Mary was raised with, that I was raised with, and I'm sure certainly Northeast Ohio is not any different from more Central Ohio where I'm from, is that if you work hard enough, if you stay focused and keep a discipline toward what you want to get done, you have the opportunity to make your life better. You know, we have hope and we have belief that if we work hard enough and stay committed to the cause, our life can get better, or we can make our lives better for our children. And that hope is what you don't see, or what I don't see in the Middle East.
I had the opportunity to interview the Cavs president, Len Komorowski, general manager Chris Grant, and coach Byron Scott at the Summer Sports Series. We discussed the plans for the 12-13 season and the new talent on the team.
And welcome back to Lander Haven. Executive Caterers here. We're talking with the Cavaliers as we do our Summer Sports Series at Lander Haven. Len, just kind of give us a state of the team, because this franchise is really a great piece of our community right now, and it's not just basketball, it's a whole lot more.
Well, it all starts with Dan Gilbert, and Dan is, as we know, one of the people who are really passionate about the future of Cleveland, what's taking place here, what's happening, has doubled down literally in terms of his investment in the community, and it's been amazing. So we have 3,600 team members in total in the world of Dan. when you look at Northeast Ohio, between the Q, the Cavs, Monsters, Gladiators, Canton Charge now, but also Horseshoe Casino, Ritz Hotel, Veritix, our ticketing company, Quicken Loans Web Center just grew to 400 team members as well, Bisdom now open in Cleveland as well, and Fatheads Distribution Center. So we have a phase 2 that'll be coming with the casino as well. So it's been incredible when you think about Dan purchasing this team back in March of 2005, where we were gunned arena in the Cavaliers, and to where we've come today. And I think, we're fortunate to have someone in Dan who just believes in Cleveland the way he does, and will give us the resources to be not only successful, but to achieve our dreams as a community.
Chris, and talk about your journey here with the Cavaliers right now, becoming the general manager, and then, what it's meant to you and what you've learned over the last couple of years.
It's been an amazing experience for me. Going into my 8th season here, came aboard many years ago, it seems like, and the team's gone through a lot of changes. Through it all, Dan's been an unbelievable leader and visionary. We have gone from a pretty tough time when we hired Byron, and the team changed dramatically. LeBron left, and at one point, I think most of the NBA and a lot of the sports world looked at us as almost a graveyard. And basically 23 months later, we have the Rookie of the Year. We have a second-team all-rookie player. We have 2 other draft picks we're very excited about. We have a ton of flexibility. And now people are starting to look at us and say, oh, wow, you guys are the new Oklahoma City. You're the new Chicago Bulls.
When you go back to thinking about selecting him first overall, I mean, there were hesitations. People would say, what are the Cavaliers doing here? They're taking a guy that really hasn't played in college. The 2 of you together and Byron first, was it a slam dunk? There was no question about it. And we saw the way this class played out last year that you were 100% right. But did you have butterflies in your stomach saying, maybe?
Well, I know I was probably a little unsure until we got an opportunity to work him out because of some of the history that we were hearing. But when I got him on the basketball floor and worked him out for 2.5 hours, when he was done, I was convinced he was the best player in the draft. But we didn't let him know that, you know what I mean? We just worked him out, and he came in and said, Coach, you got me pretty good. That was a pretty hard workout. But just going against him and having some shooting games against him and then really putting him through a real intense physical workout, when it was all said and done, I was pretty convinced that he was pretty special. I mean, when we first talked about Kyrie, the first comparison that came to mind was Chris Paul. It was a guy who I coached in New Orleans, so when I watched Kyrie play, I was like, man, they do have a lot of similarities. But the one thing I can say about the 2, Kyrie came in at 19-year-old, Chris came in at 20, and at that particular point at the end of the season, Kyrie's probably a better basketball player than Chris Paul was at this early stage of his career. So it says a lot about, where Kyrie is and a lot of potential that he has to be a great point guard.
2012 has been a renaissance of sorts for Cleveland and Northeast Ohio. Cuyahoga County Executive Ed Fitzgerald and Huntington Bank's Dan Walsh were interviewed about the successes in the Cleveland area and why things will continue this way.
Well, welcome to the Executive Caterers Corporate Club at Lander Haven. I'd like to start with a little bit of audience participation, if I can. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and a lot of people believe that there are a lot of exciting and positive new economic developments happening in Cuyahoga County. If you agree, put up your hand. All right. What role do you see for Global Cleveland in helping foster a stronger Cuyahoga County economy?
I think it's a very important part. I mean, first starting with the economic development piece, it's dawning on a lot of companies that there's a lack of talent to fill open jobs. There's 30,000 open jobs here. So if you just start from an economic development perspective, for us, again, to keep this sustainable, we need to attract and retain talent. So that's one critical role that Global Cleveland is playing. So I think that's, starting with that economic development piece is the first part. I think, too, it's really an important part about being inclusive and attracting, creating a welcoming environment so that it becomes the most welcoming place in the world. So, if you go back to Cleveland's rich legacy of attracting people from all over the world.
If you just take the city of Cleveland, for example, and if you go from the east side of Cleveland, far east side of Cleveland to the far west side, you can draw, for the first time, I think, in I don't know how long, maybe the entire history of Cleveland, you can draw almost a seamless line of development that's happening all the way along. So you start in University Circle, and then that's growing into where the clinic is. And then you go from the clinic, and you get to Midtown. You've got some good things happening in Midtown. You get from Midtown, and you get down to the Cleveland State area, which is 100% better than it used to be. Then you go from, that's now growing into the Playhouse Square area. They're overlapping. Playhouse Square is fantastic. It's doing wonderful. It's the second largest, as you know, second largest live theater district in the country. That's going to be growing at East 9th is coming back. Then you get to East 4th. Then you get to where the casino district is. Get to the warehouse district, the medical mart. And you get to the East Bank of the Flats. West 25th area is improving. Then you get to the Shoreway area and West 65th and the great things that are happening around the theaters there. And then you're almost to the Cleveland Lakewood border. There really are incredible things that are happening here. What smart public and private planning would do is, okay, once all those projects come online, what's going to be the next iteration?
What's in the pipeline?
In the next
what's coming next?
phase?
Right.
And what smart cities have done, and what we haven't done in the past, is we'll get excited about one project and we'll kind of wait to see what happens with it. That's what I think. That's one of the reasons I think the Flats died. When the Flats were doing so well, there wasn't enough of a plan to say, okay, how do we take that and then how do we build on it so that it lasts for 50 years instead of a few years? We've got to make sure that with all these great things happening that we have a plan, and a lot of that, government isn't going to play, again, the biggest role, but we can kind of set the table a little bit. One thing that we're doing in particular with the county is that we are taking all of our casino proceeds that we're entitled to, and we're dedicating it, or at least my proposal is it's going to be in front of county council next week.
And how much will that be?
Well, it depends how much you lose at the tables, but it's a gamble, I guess, how much that is. But the estimate is it'll be anywhere between $8 and $14 million a year. But we're the only public, and I'm proud of this, we're the only public entity that said we're gonna dedicate all of those funds to economic development. And we're going to try to focus those funds in particular on the downtown area so that we can start building the financial capacity to have the next wave of projects and to make sure that all these projects are connected.
The Rock Hall's Joe Perezman and Terry Stewart answered questions about the 2012 induction ceremonies, which brought national news media and rock stars here to Cleveland. Well, the process of choosing inductees is not easy, as you will learn in the following discussion.
Everyone's favorite thing to talk about every year when it's time to look at the inductees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is who's being inducted, who's been passed over, how do these people in New York decide this? This arouses a lot of passion in people.
It's as democratic as possible process where there's a group of 35, of which Terry is a member, people that are very knowledgeable about music from a variety of backgrounds. It's people from Terry's background, it's artists, it's managers, it's other people in the business, it's writers, it's critics, it's people that are chosen that have a deep knowledge of the history of rock and roll from a very disparate group. I mean, some people like a lot of different things, and people come into a room. There's not a darkened room, it's very light, and they serve sandwiches. And people have to put together what their choices are. Everyone gets to pick 3 people or 3 artists, and they have to say why these people are significant, why they feel they should be inducted. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the amount of album sales that they've had or the amount of tickets they've sold. It's really looking at their significance and their contribution to the history and the current state of music as well. These artists are talked about, they're discussed, they're argued. It's done very respectfully in this room. They're voted upon to get us down to the group of generally around 15 nominees out of the initial list is probably about 50, right? That those names are the nominees for that year. That goes to a larger group of people made up of past inductees and other people within the music business. That's about a little under 600 people. That's voted upon to get us down to the ones we choose for induction.
I think the one element that they really dislike, and I try to explain to them, they want to know why they can't be on the panel, individually, or why they can't vote. And we explained to them that it is not ever going to be turned into a popularity contest like American Idol. And none of the other halls of fame do that either. Everybody uses the same process of sorts, in the sense you have a panel of experts that nominate, you have a bigger panel of experts that vote. That way it keeps it down to a group theoretically that's very knowledgeable about this. Unfortunately, they're not always going to agree with everybody's feeling about every artist getting in when they think they should get in.
Lander Haven was created for that special moment in people's lives, and that special moment is a wedding reception. From the concept to the decorations to the entrance down the staircase, creating the magic with great service, fine wine and food, an elegant wedding cake, beautiful grounds and gardens, unforgettable images. For a wedding reception you'll always remember, Executive Caterers at Lander Haven.
Is it getting so frustrating at your office that it's harder and harder and harder to get any work done? You need services you can count on, starting with business class phone from Time Warner Cable Business Class. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Why put up with more frustrations than you have to? Enjoy our reliable solutions. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Time Warner Cable Business Class.
You live in Ohio, you work in Ohio, and when you have questions about your health insurance, you like talking with someone who's right here in Ohio. That's why you carry the Medical Mutual card. Our card comes with the best customer service anywhere. More than 2,700 dedicated employees are right here in Ohio. It's our job to take care of your healthcare needs, so you can focus on what's most important, getting well. Medical Mutual, the official health insurer of the Cleveland Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns.
Curiosity inspires us to explore our world with open eyes and an open mind. It invites unique experiences we can learn and grow from. It's an essential root of our culture. So, when does culture meet with curiosity? Around noon. Listen with curiosity. Join the conversation tomorrow around noon on 90.3 WCPN, your all-day brain food.
What if television took risks? What if it gave pioneers the chance to create something completely new and helped everyone see the world in a whole new way? For over 40 years, PBS stations have pushed the boundaries of media by asking questions no one else asks. What if media could improve the way your children learn? What if great art flowed freely into every living room? It's the questions we ask that help open new worlds and new possibilities for every American. Support your PBS station and the pioneers who never stop asking, what if?
From the Grand Ballroom at Executive Caterers at Lander Haven, thank you for joining us as we celebrate more than 20 years of presenting important and timely discussions.
As a part of the Lander Haven Summer Sports Series, local reporters who cover the Browns, Indians, and Cavs talked about Cleveland's professional sports teams. Coach Sam Ratigliano joined the panel and kept the experts on their toes with his perspective from actual coaching experience.
And you got to remember, you got a rookie quarterback, a rookie running back, a rookie right tackle, 2 guards who have played 1 year, and receivers that really haven't done the things that Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh have done. So I'm counting on Holmgren. He comes from the Walsh tree. He coached 2 Hall of Famers, and now I'm sure that Brett Favre's going to be a Hall of Famer. He knows more than anybody in the National Football League about quarterbacks, and that's how you win.
The driving force for the Browns getting Trent Richardson was Pat Shurmur, and he's the guy who's the head of the West Coast offense here. I think we're going to see a lot out of Richardson, and I think if you're a fantasy league player, draft him. There isn't a running back in the league who is built like him. I mean, he's 5'9" and a half, 5'9" and a quarter, 228 pounds. He's been likened to Ray Rice. Rice is like 20 pounds lighter. The other guy he's been likened to is Maurice Jones-Drew, who's like 3 inches shorter and 20 pounds lighter. There's nobody in the league right now like this guy. He's like got the height of a scat back, the speed of a halfback, and the power of a fullback. I can't wait to see people try to tackle him.
How do you explain the blind faith that there seems to be for the Browns? I mean, you were right at the center of the whole thing in your years as coach of the Browns. Why aren't the people walking away? Why is it a full house? Why has there not been a blackout of any home game?
Because it's the best franchise in the history of professional football. 100,000 Browns backers. I mean, there's no place in any team in Detroit, in New York, and all the teams in Pittsburgh that have been here for the entire beginning of the NFL. I mean, the fans are unbelievable.
It all started with Paul Brown. That team, that dynasty was so great that it is still infecting generations down the line. And we're all waiting for it to get at least close to that again. And that's the answer. I mean, no one's going to change the fact that this is a football city.
Amen.
Bud, do you agree with that? I mean, you grew up in Philadelphia.
So to me, there's an intensity, but there's also a sentimentality in this city, which is the only reason I can think of that people applauded for Sam and not for me. You know, it can't be any other possibility. But you know, I've been here since '91, and I'm reminded often by emailers that I'm a Johnny-come-lately in some ways still. You know, but I feel for the people here. I understand what it would mean to see a team finally get good enough to win.
I think the team has shown at least their urgency in going up and signing, drafting Richardson and drafting Whedon when everyone said, oh, you could have waited, and going up and get this guy, Josh Gordon, with a second-round pick. They are urgent. They feel it. They feel it. And just because they don't go out and give $60 million to a 31-year-old broken-down linebacker in free agency doesn't mean they don't feel the urgency.
I think what Chris Perez said, you know, when the Indians were in New York, that he doesn't get it. I think that's a vital point. He doesn't get the loyalty to the Browns and kind of the backhand treatment to the Indians that Cleveland and maybe greater Cleveland has shown.
Joe Tate, the legendary voice of the Cavaliers and Indians, was a guest on the Corporate Club with writer Terry Pluto. Fox 8's John Telich spoke with them about Tate's long career and his experiences as a sports announcer, which was highlighted in Pluto's biography of Tate.
So basically, Joe came in here and defined how basketball was done on the radio. And then secondly, in the 1970s, there were hardly any games on TV. So if you were a Cavs fan, Joe was, and you weren't at the game, Joe was your eyes. He was your voice telling you that. And so that's, I think, when we began to do the book and I asked readers to send in emails about Joe, that was what they talked about.
The 1970s. Yep. Well, talk about that. You know, you're doing the basketball. The team really wasn't that good until the Miracle Grove Richfield years. And then you're doing the Indians. They had their difficult times. We can say that quite a bit. So what was that like?
Well, it was a little hectic, although because the Indians never made the playoffs and the Cavaliers never made the playoffs, there were no overlaps. So I could just go from the end of one season to the start of the next. At the same time, I was doing the Cleveland Barons in the old American Hockey League, and they did make the playoffs. And so I was doing a lot hopping back and forth between the Barons, but they were all on WERE, and so it was just a question of which game they decided to broadcast as to where I would be on that particular evening. So it was a lot of crazy travel, but I was young and foolish. In 1974, I had 9 days in which I was either not going to, coming from, or doing a ball game. So it was hectic, but it was fun. It really was fun. It was an entirely different atmosphere to professional sports in those days as opposed to today.
And what was that first year like? I mean, it was absolutely horrible basketball, but we kind of expected that.
It was, in a way, it was probably like being a war correspondent assigned to Custer on the way to the Little Bighorn.
Not looking good so far.
I spent most of the time wondering where the heck did all those Indians come from. But I can remember, just case in point, we were delayed by snow getting back into Cleveland from Chicago, And the Lakers were due to come in and play us that night. And when they said we were going to be circling around Hopkins for a while till they get a snow grader off the runway. It's right now blocking the runway. So Fitch called the stewardess over and said, ask the pilot to check and see if the Lakers made it in. And she did, and he sent the message back, yeah, the Lakers got in about an hour ago. And Fitch turned to me and he says, another loss.
You think in your second career you could ever come back as a sports talk show host?
No, and would not want to.
I figured.
I'd rather be on the back of one of those garbage trucks. Well, that would qualify you for being on a sports talk show, come to think of it.
Let it out, Joe.
That was one.
You did this in the 70s,
One fatal
didn't you?
mistake I made was agreeing to fill in for Pete Franklin when Pete had oral surgery and couldn't do his show for a month. I filled in, but back in those days, I did it because I needed the money.
The Powering Ohio show asked difficult questions about energy resource in Northeast Ohio. They discussed the future of energy, how the news media treats subjects like a bad frack job, and the future of the energy industry here.
I got a quote here that says that you contend that the news media hate a good frack job.
Absolutely.
Now, what do you mean by the news media hates a good frack job?
Well, because in many circles, the word frack job and has become the new swear word, if you will, in the media. It elicits emotions, and get a lot of responses from it. Even though people don't know, for the most part, I could probably walk around and hear and find very few people that could explain what goes on in the hydraulic fracturing process. It does polarize people. So we can address these with facts, or we can address them to the emotional side and try to explain it. But if anything were to occur, I mean, the Youngstown earthquakes, as you brought up earlier, they were blamed on frack jobs. It had nothing to do with a frack job. It had everything to do with injection post. That was the purpose of those wells. Those wells weren't put in the ground to produce oil and gas. They were put in the ground to inject water.
We remember when the lights went out all over Northeast Ohio and up in Pennsylvania and all the way around to southern Ontario. Let's talk a little bit about the grid. How old is the grid, and can that happen again, by the way?
Yeah, the blackout, I like to say that the blackout of 2003, it was 3 trees in Northeast Ohio that started it. We can't deny that. But if 3 trees in Northeast Ohio can cause that big of a problem, it might indicate that there's more at stake than just the 3 trees.
Right. This electric grid is 50 or 60 years old.
Yes.
Aren't we about time for an update and an upgrade on it? Are we continually upgrading it?
There are continual upgrades going on and continual evaluations going on, and I think there is going to continue to need to be investment in that transmission grid.
Do we have as much natural gas in the United States as Saudi Arabia has oil?
Actually, from what they're projecting, the answer is yes. In fact, they're looking at the state of Ohio itself with the shale, and not only from a natural gas, Ohio is on the wet side of things. In other words, the liquid side, the oil side of things. And they're believing between Ohio and Pennsylvania with the Marcellus and Utica shales that we do contain the reserves of Saudi Arabia.
Speak to that, Dr. Zhang, David Zhang. What should we be doing if that be the case, that we've got this much natural gas?
Well, the last thing you want to happen to the development of shale gas is a major accident. So we need to be very careful. Even though more than 800,000 wells has been drilled by hydrofracking and there has been no accident, but typically it's just take one major accident to significantly damage the industry.
Northeastern Ohio is positioning itself as a region of innovation in technology. Beju Shah of Biomotive, Dr. Luis Proenza, president of the University of Akron, and Jim Free of NASA Glenn Research Center were the panelists. Fox 8's Lou Maglio spoke with them about the great potential for economic growth in this area.
So much of the conversation we've had here lately with the political campaign and just in our daily lives has to do with jobs and these technologies that we're developing here in Northeast Ohio. Beju, what is the hope in terms of jobs? I mean, I think people have this idea that all the tech jobs, all the innovation is coming from Silicon Valley, the East Coast corridors, but you're very optimistic about what we can do here.
Sure. There was a campaign.
Oh, did you hear about the campaign?
You know, what I feel as Clevelanders here, because I'm a born and raised Clevelander, is that too often we're still looking for the Fortune 100 company to show up. We're used to being a culture of Fortune 100 companies. And when you look at what's happened in our community over the last decade, it's thousands of small firms, many of them based on technology innovation, whether it's medical or polymers or space science, that are growing and thriving and creating the types of jobs that are attracting individuals back to Cleveland or to Cleveland for the first time. In the medical industry alone, we've grown from 2000 to 2010 by well over 5,000 jobs in just that sector. And it certainly happened in other technology sectors as well. And in fact, most of that talent is coming from outside the region to come here for the positions that are being created.
And Luis, at the University of Akron, I mean, you've been at the forefront of so much of this. What does it mean? How does it help your students there? What do they learn with these collaborations? And secondarily, when they learn through these collaborations, there is a greater tendency for them to get jobs and stay right here in Northeast Ohio.
Well, the exciting thing about our programs is that they're all very much related to the major economic clusters of Northeast Ohio. Thus, everything that we do in the laboratory that can become a new technology or a new company has the likelihood that the student that has worked on them will find one or many job opportunities, because if you just take the polymer industry, that's 1,800 different companies in Northeast Ohio alone, and Ohio is the #1 employer of polymer-related work in the country. But in so many other ways, in engineering and corrosion management and biomedical applications, et cetera, our kids are learning right alongside their industry counterparts and thereby having a leg up.
We're not good at manufacturing. We have great ideas. We can take the concept so far, but we're not the ones to figure out how to make it cheap, how to make it better, and how to make it in quantities people can use. And our aerogel polymer work with Dr. Proenza at the University of Akron is the perfect example. It's really going to innovate how we insulation techniques for home, for clothing, for space travel. By the way, I got to throw that in. I'll get thrown out of NASA if I don't throw that in. But it will. It's we were talking about a 1 millimeter thickness of our aerogel has twice the insulation value as 6 inches of fiberglass.
Landerhaven was created for that special moment in people's lives, and that special moment is a wedding reception. From the concept to the decorations to the entrance down the staircase, creating the magic with great service, fine wine and food, an elegant wedding cake, beautiful grounds and gardens, unforgettable images. For a wedding reception you'll always remember, executive caterers at Landerhaven.
Is it getting so frustrating at your office that it's harder and harder and harder to get any work done? You need services you can count on, starting with business class phone from Time Warner Cable Business Class. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Why put up with more frustrations than you have to? Enjoy our reliable solutions. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Time Warner Cable Business Class.
You live in Ohio, you work in Ohio, and when you have questions about your health insurance, you like talking with someone who's right here in Ohio. That's why you carry the Medical Mutual card. Our card comes with the best customer service anywhere. More than 2,700 dedicated employees are right here in Ohio. It's our job to take care of your healthcare needs, so you can focus on what's most important, getting well. Medical Mutual, the official health insurer of the Cleveland Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns.
Oh, hi. Welcome to WCLV.
Follow me. This is my office. You can go quickly past it because it's a mess. You should take a look at some of the engineering bells and whistles there in this room. 12,000 CDs in strict order by label. Since the microphone stands in for each and every listener in our audience, we welcome you to listen to WCLV as a public radio station.
What if television took risks? What if it gave pioneers the chance to create something completely new and helped everyone see the world in a whole new way? For over 40 years, PBS stations have pushed the boundaries of media by asking questions no one else asks. What if media could improve the way your children learn? What if great art flowed freely into every living room? It's the questions we ask that help open new worlds and new possibilities for every American. Support your PBS station and the pioneers who never stop asking, what if?
Monica Robbins took an in-depth look at cancer treatment with two of the top oncologists in the country, Dr. Stan Gerson of University Hospitals and Dr. Derek Raghavan of the Cleveland Clinic. Although the two hospitals compete for patients and for prestige, these individual doctors compete as friends and have strengthened each of their teams by collaboration and double teaming.
One of the issues we were talking about earlier is research, and let's talk money. What are some of the things that are happening right now in relation to the government that may impact the future of cancer research, and what needs to be done?
So I think if I could, we're all in trouble. And I say that because the economy is trying to eke its way back. We know the federal government expenditures are too high, that the federal deficit's too high. We know, whether you're Republican or Democrat, that we're going to have to curtail those overall budgets. And one of the entitlement programs is Health and Human Services, and within Health and Human Services is the National Institutes of Health, and within the National Institutes of Health is the about $8 billion that's spent a year on the research that Derek and I lead. That's $8 billion, and that's about a day and a half in Iraq or in Afghanistan.
We are consistently rating grants as being terrifically important to the welfare of the community, and the government doesn't have enough money to allow this work to be implemented. Philanthropic support is helpful. We both are the beneficiaries of that with our teams. But the reality is we need to be calling on government to start to rationalize its expenditure. The amount of profligate wastage on stupid pork barrel projects that won't help anybody except get a few politicians reelected is legion. It's not one group, it's not one domain, it's not one party. But as an electorate, and particularly an educated electorate such as in this room, you have to understand the crisis that's facing medical research in general, not just cancer research at the present time.
Is there an issue of getting researchers into the business of research?
We have amazing academic communities, academic medical centers in this town to encourage folks to be able to link in, either because they run a laboratory or because they do clinical trials, to the research process in cancer. But I'll tell you, when 1 in 12 or 1 in 15 folks can get external money, those folks start to say, why should I waste my time doing this? I'm going to go off to do something else. So I really do think that we are right at that cusp of risking the next generation, if you will, of great minds to think about this important topic. And if we're not able to fund them in a career, they're going to move on to something else. So I think we're going to be looking at a slowdown in progress in cancer research over the next decade. I'm really worried about that.
One of the issues is that it just takes so many years for an idea to become a drug and reach the patient's bedside. At this point, what do people need to know when they hear reports in the news about a new cancer breakthrough that they found something in a lab rat or mice?
The reality is, as humans, we do terrible things to our organism that little mice don't do, or that doesn't happen in a test tube. So the fact of the matter is, I think it behooves the press, and I think it behooves researchers to make clear what the nature of the improvement is. You'll hear about some new treatment. I think it's very important for reporters, and Monica, you and Alicia Booth and others who we have in town are actually at the very highest end of healthcare reporting. You do ask the right questions, but there are tons of people who will come up to Stan and me at national meetings and breathlessly ask about some new breakthrough that's rubbish, and we say it's rubbish, and it doesn't make the news because it's negative. The reality is we have a responsibility to the community to set expectations that are realistic and to define the fact that this particular entity is in an animal model, it'll need further testing, don't make book on it being successful. If we set unreasonable expectations in the community, then the community will lose confidence in the biomedical profession and stop wanting to support research. So we have to pull back on some of the spin.
From the Grand Ballroom at Executive Caterers at Landerhaven, thank you for joining us as we celebrate more than 20 years of presenting important and timely discussions.
The discussion about education with Mayor Frank Jackson and Cleveland Metropolitan School District CEO Eric Gordon centered around the ever-struggling Cleveland school system. They spoke of the importance of the tax levy and how the district will be accountable to the taxpayers.
So the mayor's office is very much involved in schools, thus your presence here today. Will the money fix the problem from your estimation?
Money alone never fixes problems. The money, along with the reform plan that we have and the legislative reform that we got out of Columbus, the combination of those two things will give us the best chance we've ever had to fix whatever problems may be and really to get ahead of everyone else.
Mr. Gordon, the mayor mentioned the word the housing crisis. Foreclosure had to hit Cleveland schools. It hit everybody, of course, but it had to hit Cleveland schools very, very hard. Speak to that, about how it hit you and where you are now as a result of the foreclosure crisis we've seen all over the United States.
Well, it's the foreclosure crisis, which was a part of a bigger economic collapse in our country. And so the challenge we face as a district is that our state revenue has dropped by about $74 million in a 2-year period, and our federal revenue dropped $84 million in that same 2-year period, even as the real estate in Cleveland and across the country went through the foreclosure, which meant tax collections dropped also to historic lows in our city. So what that meant for us as a district is that revenue that we've been previously dependent upon to continue to service children vanished, literally vanished, which caused us to cut over $114 million out of our budget. We've laid off over 1,000 staff members in a 3-year period alone. We've closed schools, we've cut programs, we've reduced services, we've shortened the day, and none of those things are going to get us to prosperity. We cannot cut our way to prosperity, which gets us to the point of whether we're going to reinvest in our schools right now. That's issue 107.
And this transformation plan, the Cleveland Schools transformation plan, that will bring it to scale? These islands of excellence become more of a continent?
Those are the tools. We went after modernizing work rules, and the Cleveland Teachers Union were tremendous champions at modernizing work rules that have long existed from the 40s and the 50s and 60s, a different way of teaching. We went after the ability to collaborate with charter schools in a positive way instead of the very loggerhead way that we've been doing it in our state in the past, so we can incentivize the very best. Some of them are here today, and we can screen out those that are the worst performing. And we went after flexibilities that let us get into our lowest performing schools and make quick decisions about change. Those 3 components together with the resources give us the tools we need to take what has already worked across our city and spread it more quickly so that we get the results we need.
Now, this 3 phases. First phase was reform plan. We would never ask anybody for a levy to just continue the same old thing. So the reform plan gives us the tool. The financial side gives us the wherewithal to be effective with those tools and get the job done in a shorter period of time. The third phase is all about execution and implementation. And that means the superintendent then will have the responsibility of looking at his organizational structure and what does he need to do to have changes in that organizational structure and the movement of people, having the right people in the right place in order to execute the plan. So first part, plan, second part, financial, third part, execution.
And I would argue the fourth part is accountability. What we've given voters in this choice, which has never happened in Cleveland before, is that this levy expires in 4 years. So that when we demonstrate that this system can improve rapidly, we're going to ask for a renewal of commitment. But if we don't, the voters get to hold us accountable by not renewing this levy. So there's an element of accountability that we've never seen in Cleveland before.
So we've got a 4-year, we're going to be looking at this passes, and you're saying when this passes.
When this passes.
We're looking at a 4-year track record.
That's right.
And you're saying, hold my feet to the fire. That's what you're
Absolutely.
telling Northeast
Exactly right.
Ohio, what you're telling Cleveland.
That's right.
And you're saying that too, Mayor.
That's right.
Report cards. That one is from the fourth grade.
Pass those over here.
And this is from the second grade.
Let me
Really,
see
that's
it.
true.
Let me see it.
And when my mother was alive, Mother kept all of those, and when I borrowed them, I actually had to almost sign them out from her like a library book.
Yeah.
Mother's gone now, so I've inherited my own cards there. And
So it looks like your fourth grade teacher knew that you were going to be a reporter. You work very well and are a fine citizen, but you talk a little too much.
It's true.
Also featured in the Summer Sports Series was Indians manager Manny Acta. Always entertaining, Manny gave us an idea of what it's like to be a manager. The Cleveland Indians were in first place when Manny gave the interview in June, but the team was in the cellar near the end of the season, and Manny was let go.
Who's got the ballpark? Best is all right here. Who's got the fans with so much Cleveland pride? Who's talking baseball? Talking tribe.
Weird things happening in this town as to how fans look at their sports teams. Your team is in first place, but at the same time, football fans, a lot of the sports fans in town, are worried about who's taking the snaps at minicamp. And at the same time, everyone else is worried about a former basketball player from Cleveland being on the cusp of winning an NBA basketball championship. How do you take that as the manager of the team when you've got a first place team and yet maybe there should be more people coming out to support your team?
Well, I think I look at it this way. I understand that people love football in America overall. It's not only just here in Cleveland. And they play once a week. You know, that's one of the arguments when people are talking about, oh, they get 60,000 people over there, you're battling with the attendance. We play every day. We play 81 games here, and they don't play that many games here. We'll even die with it. We just try to put a good product on the field, and if we do the right thing, just like last year when we drew over 450,000 more fans because how we were playing the game, the people are going to show up. But times have changed. We understand about the economy. We understand about technology, which is great, but it's also hurting some of the stuff on the sports arena. I understand the first 2 weeks of the season or first 3-4 weeks of the season, if it is 40 degrees right next to that lake and you have a 60-inch HD TV at home that you can replay it every time you want and you can have a few cocktails and not worry about a DUI, not going to get mad at you for that, but you know that comes with technology. You know, it comes with technology, and we have to live with it. We understand all that, and in sports, unfortunately, that's what's happening nowadays. But TV is also responsible for a lot of the revenues that come into our game. So it's something that we understand, and you know we accept it, and we just try to put a good product on the field and go from there. When it comes to the other stuff, I support every team here. I mean, I'm here. I consider myself part of this community. It's a little awkward when I go to a bar to watch a basketball game to see the whole bar rooting against the team because certain guy is no longer here. But I joined the crowd, and I said I'm for Cleveland, and whatever Cleveland wants, who they want us to win, Oklahoma City, let's go. You know, what am I gonna do?
The Corporate Club luncheon programs at Lander Haven this year covered politics, the economy, education, sports, and Cleveland's resurgence. We hope you enjoyed this show and stay with us in 2013 as we continue dealing with those issues and people that impact the lives of persons living here in Northeast Ohio.
Corporate Club is brought to you by Executive Caterers, a special place for special occasions. Medical Mutual of Ohio, Ohio's Get Well card, offering health plans for life. Time Warner Business Class, making more of every minute with the speed you need. Inside Business Magazine, your source for business in Northeastern Ohio. Fox 8 WJW Television. 90.3 Idea Stream, the all-day brain food. ALG Computer, consulting and training. Signs PDQ, professional, dependable quality. And Jones for printing services. Supporting sponsorships are brought to you by the Greater Cleveland Partnership, a catalyst for change. Northern Ohio Chambers of Commerce. A portion of the proceeds of the Corporate Club at Lander Haven benefits Junior Achievement of Greater Cleveland. Lander Haven was created for that special moment in people's lives, and that special moment is a wedding reception. From the concept to the decorations to the entrance down the staircase, creating the magic with great service, fine wine and food, an elegant wedding cake, beautiful grounds and gardens, unforgettable images. For a wedding reception you'll always remember, Executive Caterers at Lander Haven.
Is it getting so frustrating at your office that it's harder and harder and harder to get any work done? You need services you can count on, starting with business class phone from Time Warner Cable Business Class. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Why put up with more frustrations than you have to? Enjoy our reliable solutions. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Time Warner Cable Business Class.
You live in Ohio, you work in Ohio, and when you have questions about your health insurance, you like talking with someone who's right here in Ohio. That's why you carry the Medical Mutual card. Our card comes with the best customer service anywhere. More than 2,700 dedicated employees are right here in Ohio. It's our job to take care of your healthcare needs, so you can focus on what's most important, getting well. Medical Mutual, the official health insurer of the Cleveland Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns.
Curiosity inspires us to explore our world with open eyes and an open mind. It invites unique experiences we can learn and grow from. It's an essential root of our culture. So, when does culture meet with curiosity? Around noon. Listen with curiosity. Join the conversation tomorrow around noon on 90.3 WCPN, your all-day brain food.
What if television took risks? What if it gave pioneers the chance to create something completely new and helped everyone see the world in a whole new way? For over 40 years, PBS stations have pushed the boundaries of media by asking questions no one else asks. What if media could improve the way your children learn? What if great art flowed freely into every living room? It's the questions we ask that help open new worlds and new possibilities for every American. Support your PBS station and the pioneers who never stop asking, what if?
From the Grand Ballroom at Executive Caterers at Landerhaven, thank you for joining us as we celebrate more than 20 years of presenting important and timely discussions. Corporate Club is the direct link for community leaders to connect with regional businesses, government, and nonprofit organizations. This series of programs deals with those issues and persons that impact on the lives of those who live in Northeastern Ohio.